I would just like to say this is probably one of the biggest projects I will ever work on. I got this idea from a podcast from listening to for the past few years called Let Me Tell You Something. Before I explain the project itself, I need to do a little bit of context for the casual viewers. I briefly explained in the last episode of Ring Rewind, but there is a wrestling journalist named Dave Meltzer who publishes for Wrestling Observer newsletter. One of the things he's most known for is rating matches from a 0 to 5 star rating system, with 5 being one of the highest achievements a wrestling match can receive. But within the past few years, we began more than 25 star matches per year, with some of those matches going beyond the 5-star limit, causing arguments and debates with people thinking that maybe he's going a little excessive with the ratings. He's been given matches ratings since 1983, and throughout the past 40 years, he has given, at the time of recording this portion of the video, a total of 257 matches 5 stars or higher. And now this brings me back to the podcast I mentioned earlier. They have a project where they discuss every Meltzer 5-star match and talk about if it's worthy of being 5 stars or not. I wanted to do something similar, but kind of in the style of like an LS Mark ranking video, where he ranks every episode of something and it's like a multi-hour long project. At this point, there is no way I'm going to be able to do a multi-hour long video, but the best I can do is multiple parts, starting with the 1980s, beginning with the very first Meltzer 5-star match. Well, here it is, the very first 5-star match, and does it still hold up for over 40 years later? Well, yes and no. Professional wrestling still has this stigma about it, where people ranking up is determined by how big your muscles are and how loud you can talk. But a lot of the time, what keeps people around longer is the smaller guys that can really work good matches. Something to make the casual fans say, wow, that was actually pretty cool, I want to see more of that. And back in 1983, New Japan Pro Wrestling, yes, you're going to hear this company's name a lot in this video. New Japan was pushing smaller wrestlers more than any other company in the world, with Tiger Mask being their main star in their junior heavyweight division, and New Japan wanting him to take on gaijin talent to make himself a bigger name internationally, with his most legendary rival being Dynamite Kid, who is arguably one of the most transformative wrestlers of the 1980s. This match on April 21st, 1983 will unexpectedly be their final match together. I will get into why that is later, but how is the match itself? It's kinda mid. Don't get me wrong, the first several minutes of in-ring action is incredible for its time and kinda still holds up 40 years later, but the match falls right off a cliff almost immediately after Tiger Mask hits the plancha, sending both of them into the barricade. They both got counted out and asked the referee to restart the match, which the match does get restarted. But then it just gets out of control and confusing as Dynamite Kid breaks a glass bottle on the ring post, threatening to stab the referee. But the match gets restarted a second time and ends with both men giving each other tombstone pile drivers on the floor and both getting counted out. So after this match gets restarted twice, it ends with no winners. As you can see, I'm not a real big fan of this match. I enjoyed it when it kept it mostly in ring with the quick moves and exchanges, but there was no need for this uncontrolled craziness that made me ask, alright, what's happening now? There are parts that still kind of hold up, but in the end, I'm not giving this one 5 stars. But what would be remembered is that this was one of the most important matches in wrestling history. Everyone talks about when Roman Reigns contracted COVID and didn't show up to the WWE Day 1 pay-per-view being the biggest butterfly effect in wrestling history. I'd argue this match is right up there. Tiger Mask would get injured during the month of April in 1983, with this match exacerbating that injury, forcing him to vacate the NWA World Junior Heavyweight Championship. Satoru Sayama, the man under the Tiger Mask, would leave New Japan Pro Wrestling feeling dissatisfied as he hated the politics behind the scenes. He would join the UWF a year later, which plays a part in our very next match I'm reviewing. By then, All Japan Pro Wrestling had purchased the Tiger Mask name and gimmick and gave it to a man whose name you're gonna hear a lot on this list. Not to mention, Dynamite Kid's wrestling style would influence an entire generation of wrestlers who normally associated with Stu Hart's wrestling dungeon. For this match itself, even though it's one of the most important matches in wrestling history, I wouldn't give it 5 stars. 3 1/4 star for this match. This is one of the more weirder matches that I have covered. Pro wrestling is fake, people say, but this match is a perfect example of pro wrestling as a combat sport. This has very little to do with how we typically view pro wrestling, with big high spots, storytelling, all of what you see in matches nowadays. This is basically just a shoot grappling match for over 20 minutes. But what amazes me most is the crowd. It goes from super loud and exciting to so quiet you can hear a fucking pin drop because they're so focused. They have some stiff strikes and a pretty nice finish that ends with a bridging German suplex. Both wrestlers spent 95% of the match establishing a logic and narrative framework for viewers to follow. For the first 20 minutes of this amateur real wrestling style is quite interesting, and near the end of the match one of them hits a tombstone pile driver and it just seems like out of place in something like this. This match is solid, but it doesn't have that big fight feel. Legit, the very next match following this on the same night was Super Tiger vs Yoshiaki Fujiwara in a death match, and I thought that was a way better match. But this isn't a bad match, but I would recommend checking this one out if you're interested. 4 stars for this match. Literally 3 days later, this match would take place. The first of 37 different 5-star matches for the promotion All Japan Pro Wrestling, starting with Bruiser Brody and Stan Hansen versus the Funks. And sorry, but the finish of this match kinda lost me, I'm not gonna lie. I don't know, I don't think I'm a fan of these insane, crazy finishes with no winner or having a clean finish. I get that was the style at the time, but honestly, I'm glad that style has changed. Basically, Bruiser Brody and Stan Hansen take control for almost the whole match and just beat the tar out of the Funk brothers. Terry Funk would pretty much just go, alright, that's it, no more Mr. Nice Guy, and bring a weapon into the ring, causing both the Funks to lose to DQ, but he chased off Brody and Hansen. It's not always about wins or losses in their eyes, it's about him standing up for his brother, even if he had to break the rules in order to do it. I can see why they did the DQ finish, but honestly, it would have been a lot more impactful if this match had a clean finish. Whether it be Brody and Hansen beating the Funks, but the Funks getting so close to beating them, or maybe have the Funks overcome the odds, putting these two dangerous men down. This DQ finish they went with was kind of an easy way out. It's like when Ice Cube from Friday pulled out his gun and shot Debo, and that was the ending, instead of him actually beating up Debo. Well, okay, I get they used a brick, but like shut up though. I like the overall narrative, but it could have been a better finish. 3.5 stars for this match. Well, this is the first of many 5-star matches from Mitsuharu Misawa, and oh, for fuck's sake. Yeah, sorry for spoilers, but this one ends in a double countout after 11 minutes. Just like the first Tiger Mask match we covered. The in-ring stuff is fine, but goddamn, I hate the non-clean finish of these matches. If you want a more detailed look at this match, I made a whole ring rewind about it. Otherwise, this is not a 5-star match. This is at the bottom of the list so far, 3 1/4 star. Finally, an actual banger match, and holy schmoly, what a match this is. This is our first women's match to feature in this list, as Jaguar Yokota defends her WWA Championship against Lioness Asuka. The pace for this one is a million miles an hour, and it's hard to keep up with the action, especially for the first 5 minutes of it. They both work submissions like Zack Sabre Jr. and never really sit in them and transition to submission to submission. The only one they really sit in is a figure 4 leg lock where Yokota is working over Lioness's leg. When Lioness gets control, the match speeds up again, and it all leads to Yokota hitting a kneeling underhook pile driver, to which Lioness bridges out of the pinfall, to which Asuka hits a running sit-out tombstone pile driver. But back in the old days, big moves like this used to finish matches, right? Oh wait, she bridges out of it? This match still holds up to this day and honestly deserves to be the first match on this list to earn the 5-star ratings for it. So 5 stars for this match. Already we have another match at the top of the list. Holy schmoly, I really enjoyed this match. I would really consider this to be the first AJPW 5-star match, as the tag champions Junichiro Tenryu and Jumbo Tsuruta defend their tag titles against Riki Choshu and an injured Yoshiaki Yatsu. The first few minutes of this match show the great teamwork between Choshu and Yatsu up until Tsuruta and Tenryu start working over Yatsu's taped up ribs. Things become very personal between Yatsu and Tenryu, as at certain points throughout the match you could see them two just beating the tar out of each other up at ringside. My favorite spot during this whole match was the buildup of Choshu hitting Tsuruta and Tenryu with the backdrop suplexes. All for Choshu to put a spinning toe hold on Tsuruta, and Tenryu comes into the frame to sneak up on Choshu and hit him with a backdrop suplex of his own. The only real criticism I have is that it would have made more sense if they had pinned an injured Yatsu instead of Choshu. But other than that, great stiff strike exchanges, making this match feel real personal. And this is the type of chaos that I enjoy in wrestling. You can have chaos and craziness happen without having it to be a no contest. 5 stars for this match. These were the types of matches I was kind of dreading watching going into this project. 80s Ric Flair matches. I get it, these were historical for American wrestling at the time, and these classics had to have been like a spectacle to have watched back then. But I'm sorry, this could just be a me thing, but with someone like ADHD, it's pretty hard to get through these. Not because it's 40 minutes, I can watch 40-minute matches, but 80s 40-minute matches don't really have a whole lot going on, so they'll just sit in rest holds for the majority of it. There were a few things worth noting that I liked in this match. There was one part where Flair gets whipped into the ropes, but the ropes were super loose and his head just gets snapped off the ropes. And then he starts selling it to cover up the botch, which is absolutely genius. But ultimately the match ends in a double countout, which I understand why, because you gotta make Barry Windham look good and also to keep the belt on Ric Flair. If that were the case, why not just go for a time limit draw, which they ended up doing in their next match actually. At the very least, this did not need to go 40 minutes with a finish like that. 4 stars for this match. Holy schmoly, fuck this match. This one shocked me a bit. How the fuck do the Bushwhackers have a 5-star match? Oh, and it ends with a double DQ too in the 80s, that's why. This match is fine, it's super whatever. I legit just watched it and forgot everything what happens in it. Since it's technically the USA versus New Zealanders, the Fantastics have to lead the crowd to reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. You could just smell the 80s Southern wrestling in this thing, and this is the type of shit your grandpa would tell you about how wrestling was way better back in his time. Meanwhile, you're trying to watch a Roman Reigns title defense for the 18th time. But it's just basic babyface versus heel shenanigans. One of the babyface team members gets busted open, so this leads into the heels getting some color as well too. And then the referee gets knocked down, and the whole match turns into a big schmoz until the referee wakes up and DQs everyone in the match. And I'm just sitting here so bored. I'm glad it's 15 minutes, but other than that, 2.5 stars for this match. Bottom of the list so far. Such a way better match than the previous one. This is the match that should have been the last one, and what really helps too is that this is a TV match, meaning that all the boring heat segments were during the commercial breaks, making this match a much better viewing experience. I love the psychology of this match too. I don't know, maybe I'm a sucker for time limit draws, especially for the final 5 minutes of this match where Barry Windham goes for everything he can just to pin Ric Flair, but Flair keeps kicking out of everything until the 45 minutes expire. And what helps too is the little subtle sneaky things that Ric Flair does in this match. Not the basic heel stuff from his last match, but stuff like either wasting time on the outside, rolling, bumping into the floor whenever he gets a chance. Even when he's backed into a corner and can't really think of anything to try and beat Barry Windham with, he does whatever it takes to run out the clock. You see, even though Flair is the champion here, if a title match goes to a time limit draw, the champion will still get to keep their belt. It's TV time too, so they only get 45 minutes. So even when everyone knows that Barry will go outside to drag Flair back into the ring, it's seconds to a minute of time ticking away. Which is a genius heel strategy that still makes Barry look strong because it doesn't make him look weak when he doesn't win the belt. I had a surprising amount of enjoyment in this one, and I honestly think this match still holds up to this day. 5 stars for this match. I want to apologize in case I get any info wrong about this match. I did some research so I can learn more about the Crush Gals because I didn't have much knowledge or experience watching these two or anything from this era of Japanese wrestling. I want to thank Joseph Montesil for his video on the Crush Gals, considering that this is one of the more important matches of this part. This match does have a 30-minute time limit draw, and it's almost a full sprint, especially in the second half. There is a nice parallel. I do love where in the start Asuka gets a flurry of kicks on Chigusa in the ropes, but when Chigusa gets the upper hand, it's a literal mirror of the same sequence that just happened earlier. I can see how some people can see that this is a bit overrated within the second half, and it's very much just do a move and then pin, and then do a move and then pin. But like, just understand that these are tag team partners and this is a #1 contenders match. Wouldn't you think that both of them just want to end the match as quick as they can? Sadly, they couldn't because the time limit expires, making it a draw. Or so we thought. They are given extra 5 minutes, and this is just a non-stop sprint at this point. The crowd is on fire. You can see that both of the Crush Gals are tired, worn out, and the time expires once again. We get a bit more discussion of the officials that gave the victory to Lioness Asuka. It was the judge's decision, but I could be wrong. This time for Joshi was very important and paved the way for modern women's wrestling. No matter what gender, this was a super awesome match regardless. This match gets the full 5 stars for me and sits at top of the list. This is a chapter of the NJPW versus UWF rivalry, as this is kind of built as Team New Japan with Keiji Muto and Shiro Koshinaka versus Team UWF with Akira Maeda and Nobuhiko Takada, who some of you may remember from the second match that I reviewed already. This has a lot of stiff strikes, and I always love seeing that, as Keiji Muto does a beautifully executed moonsault as always, but this match is really dragged down by the UWF heat segment going on for way too long. I like the simple story of this match being the UWF guys outmatched Shiro and Muto, and for almost the entirety of this match, Shiro has taken most of the punishment. But in the end, they win with a simple roll-up catching Takada lacking, with a nice visual of all 4 men just shaking hands and showing respect to one another. I always love seeing that. But it's kind of a slog to get through the middle part of this match, with both of these guys just beating up on Shiro, with him barely getting any cutoffs or chances in between. Once he tags in Muto, he does get his awesome moonsault in, but is barely in the match before tagging Bet Shiro back in. It's a simple story, which isn't a bad thing, but honestly, I think it benefits from that. But I don't see this as a 5-star match. It's going above the UWF match though. This match gets a 4 stars from me. Here it is, the last match of the Ric Flair and Barry Windham trilogy. This is pretty structured as a house show match, and which is just the highlights of the Windham and Flair matches, and honestly this is my least favorite out of the trilogy. Flair's heat segment drags in this match to a slow crawling pace, but once it picks back up with Barry Windham making a comeback, it's nothing really worth highlighting. And legit, Barry Windham doesn't really look all that smart in this match anyways, especially during the moment where he pins Flair. The referee counts to 3 but notices Flair's foot was on the ropes and the match continues. Barry hits a running lariat and pins Flair again, but once again Flair's foot was on the rope. Like, wouldn't you drag him away from the rope before pinning him again to prevent him from putting his foot on the rope that literally just happened 20 seconds ago? But I'm glad this match is the one that has a definitive finish. After a series of roll-ups, Flair just so happens to be pulling on the tights harder and barely manages to retain the World Heavyweight Championship. Also too, I really don't like the footage of this match too. I'm not gonna knock it stars for this because, you know, it's not the match's fault. But if you seek this one out for yourself, the VHS copy blue screens halfway through the match and the whole thing thing is filmed in one stationary camera. Yeah, after doing enough research, this was a house show match, or at least something like non-televised but taped for later usage. With those nitpicks out of the way, this is not a 5-star match. This isn't even 4 stars. This match is 3.5 stars. To my knowledge, this is the first ever televised War Games match. Before I get into the match itself, I want to shout out Arn Anderson. If you ever do find interest in seeking this match out for yourself, Arn Anderson's performance is easily the best thing out of this whole match. So far, for people who don't know, a War Games match has 2 rings instead of just 1, and a big cage surrounding the 2 rings. There is usually 2 teams of 5. A match will start off with 1 member of each team getting 5 minutes alone. After a certain amount of time, 1 member from a team will go in, making a lot of 2-on-1 situations until it becomes 2-on-2, 2-on-3, etc. Until every single wrestler is in the cage, thus making it the match beyond. At this point, if 1 member gets pinned, submits, or surrenders, they lose it for their whole team. I'm gonna be honest, I'm not really a big fan of War Games matches. Don't get me wrong, I love chaotic, bloody, car crash matches like this. The visual of the 2 rings with the cage is awesome to look at. What bugs me is the pre-match before the match beyond, where you just beat up your opponent without trying to go for a pin or submission, and then just having to wait until your teammate enters the cage. Like honestly, this 1 person at a time gimmick only has 1 formula that works and makes sense. The babyface at the start takes control of the match, beats up the heel until the heel's teammate joins in and outnumbers the babyface, until the babyface's teammate joins in and makes it a fair fight, and then they take control. Rinse and repeat until everyone joins the fun box. Honestly, there's a lot more potential in booking with a lot more possibilities if they just made this match elimination. Like, you can just have 1 member join in after a certain amount of time, but there would just be a lot more urgency at any point if anybody could just get eliminated early on. And having that team who's down a member having to strategize to try and win it, instead of just 3 minutes of playtime. It's a very 80s movie style of booking that sadly doesn't work well nowadays. But just a lot of chaos with all 10 guys just beating each other up, bleeding all over the place, and what makes this match type work, and it still holds up to this day. It's what literally replaced the traditional Survivor Series matches. But for as this match in particular, it's a fun brawl, but must have been crazy for its time. And it puts over the surrender aspect of this match too. But the ending just kind of came out of nowhere, and to be honest, making it kind of forgettable. If there was more built up, this would have been 5 stars, but 4.5 stars for this match. Alright, this part of the video is going to be a little bit unscripted because we have a lost match alert on our hands. This is a 12 women's tag match from AJW, and there's barely any footage of this. There's 17, apparently this match is like 50 minutes or something like that, and there's only 17 minutes of footage out there in poor quality and condition, but it's got all these names right here, and the only bit of like proof that I have of this match's existence is this post on Reddit here that says, just a note on this match, since I once looked into it myself, this was a match that Dave saw in person. As far as I know, it never aired, or even if it was recorded, you'll likely only get a few minutes of clip. Unless someone has tracked down the results on paper or magazine, this match has been lost in time. So we have lost media on our hands right now, and I hope this section of the video can like get the search going, because I need to see this match for historical purposes. This is a lost media match. Dave fucking went to a house show and saw this and thought it was good enough for a 5-star match. Now no one else gets to see it, I guess. Exclusive Dave 5-star match. So I hope someone out there finds footage of this soon, because me personally and many others would so bad love to see this match. So no rating, sorry. This one took me by surprise. This wouldn't shock me if this was one of Jim Cornette's favorite matches of all time. I was a bit worried for all these longer 80s matches, but a lot of them still hold up to this day and are still fun to watch. I've never seen this one before, and I was a little bit worried about after hearing that this one goes 40 minutes, but I was stunned at this match being a faster pace, with it helped by the fact that it's a tag team match. The Fantastics give a way better performance in this match than their last match with the Bushwhackers. Just the burst opening stretch of this match with amazing reversals and teamwork from the Fantastics. It slows down a little bit in the middle portion when the Midnight Express starts taking control of the match, but the last two segments of this match when Bobby Fulton giving such an amazing sympathetic babyface performance, bloodied, eating punches and ragdolling everywhere, and all builds to such a perfect ending. Tommy Rogers tries everything to help out his tag partner as much as he can. He's checking up on him on the floor, he's checking on him in the corner, telling the referee to not stop the match, that he could still go. But the referee keeps backing him off in his own corner, and while the referee is distracted, Jim Cornette keeps interfering and cheating for the Midnight Express. So if they're gonna play dirty, Tommy Rogers is gonna have to play a little dirty too. Tommy climbs the top rope, waiting for his moment, hits a top rope dropkick, and Bobby Fulton quickly rolls up and wins the tag team titles for the Fantastics with such an awesome win and such a loud pop. This was such a cool moment that caught me off guard with how good it was. I would see myself rewatching this match again. 5 stars for this match and sits at the top of the list. This is one of my favorite matches of all time. I absolutely adore this match. This is the finals to the 1988 All Japan Real World Tag League. On one team we have the big, hard-hitting Westerners Terry Gordy and Stan Hansen. On the other team is the young Toshiaki Kawada and his mentor Junichiro Tenryu. The opening few minutes sets up the dynamic of this match, as Terry and Stan pick on the young Kawada, tossing him around and wearing him down. The very moment Tenryu gets tagged in, the heels roll out of the ring and cower in fear, as Tenryu is the real threat they have to deal with. Just know that Tenryu is perfectly fine holding his own and manages to hold off these guys individually, but when Gordy and Hansen outnumber Tenryu, that's when they're in control. But by getting to that point, they have to manage to get Kawada out of the picture. Because even though Kawada isn't going to be able to defeat one of these guys, especially when they cheat, he manages to prolong the match enough to keep Tenryu still in the fight. But after a bridging German suplex, Stan Hansen kicks Kawada's knee. Again and again and again. This is the strategy they need to use to be able to win this match. With Kawada screaming in pain on the floor, it's only a matter of time until these Westerners win the tag league. But Tenryu fights his ass off to try and hold it and keep fighting for as long as he can. But a vicious Western lariato puts Tenryu down, and Terry Gordy and Stan Hansen win this match. If there is any match that I recommend more in the 80s to go out and watch, this is at the top of the list for now. I've seen this match a few times before, and I'm still amazed that it holds up over 35 years later. A lot of stiff strikes, which I always love, but more importantly, such a simple yet compelling story to follow. I don't have much education when it comes to All Japan lore when I first got into it, but this I quickly understood the dynamic of this match and just adored it. This is absolutely one of the greatest tag team matches of all time and should be an example to how to book dynamic and strategy and tag matches. Not a shocker, this is at the top of the list, 5 stars for this match. This match was hard to review because this is the only known footage I found and it starts halfway through the match. So I only got to see the final 12 minutes of it, but from what I saw, it looks pretty good. It just felt like 10 minutes of a finishing stretch was all. It's fast paced with 2 big brawl segments and a lot of false finishes with a red hot crowd. Once again, Toshiaki Kawada had the best performance in the match. My attention was always focused on him whenever he shows up on screen. This was a trios match, basically giving us a preview of the Tenryu and Tsuruta feud going on in the 1989. Not given much physical interaction with both men during the match. Again, I wish I would have viewed the first half of this match so I can get the full context of the story of the match that they're trying to tell. I don't know if I should rate this match, but I'm just gonna give it stars from what I saw just in case. This match gets 4 1/4 star. Well, here we are, the first match of the list featuring the legendary rivalry between Ric Flair and Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. Heads up, the next 4 matches are going to be between these two, starting with their Chi-Town Rumble match. It's hard for me to go back and watch a lot of matches from the 80s because of the pacing. But I'll tell you this, a lot of the matches from 1989 still hold up and are rewatchable in 2024. Probably my favorite year of the 80s decade of 5-star matches. I really enjoyed this match. Telling the story of Ricky Steamboat pretty much taking control over Ric Flair in this match, and Rick tries his best to think of some ways to cheat his way to win. But he is just too outmatched by Ricky Steamboat. Rick does get some dirty tactics in, like his classic holding onto the ropes while in a figure 4 leg lock, but it's not as egregious as his other matches. This all culminates to Ricky diving off the top rope, trying to hit Ric Flair with a crossbody, but Rick pulls in the referee into the line of fire last second. With Ricky distracted, Flair grabs the tights and rolls Steamboat up for a pin, but there's no referee to count. Flair going for the figure 4 leg lock, but Ricky counters the figure 4 into a roll up, just as the second referee comes in to count the pin, crowning Ricky Steamboat as the new World Heavyweight Champion. Such a brilliant story being told here, and not really much of a dull pace. The early minutes of the match had the feeling out process that reminded me of modern New Japan matches, where it's just mat-based wrestling whenever it's going to be a long match. But this match, belt to belt, is only a little over 23 minutes. I wouldn't blame anyone if they put this on in their top 10 list for the 80s, but this goes right under the 1988 Real World Tag League Finals. 5 stars for this match. Now before I get into the discussion of the match itself, I want to point out that this is the earliest that Dave Meltzer has given the rare 6 out of 5 stars rating, mainly because he was there live in the crowd for it. Within the past almost decade now, we have seen a superabundance of matches going past the 5-star scale, and this has caused some of the biggest discourse within the wrestling community for a while now, other than the gross tribalism. The star rating argument is mainly the whole reason why I'm making this project to begin with. Should a match go past 5 stars? No and yes. The highest honor a match can receive is the limit in which you cap it at. But I could see why sometimes when a match is significantly important, you want to give it an extra stamp of approval to say to people, yeah, these are matches you should watch if you're a true wrestling fan. But these ones right here are so important to the wrestling business as a whole. Whether you want to give it 5+ stars or 6 stars or just have the max be at 5 stars, just remember all of this is just one man's opinion and you should not get worked up over it. With that being said, does this match earn 6 stars? Now normally in untelevised house show matches don't get star ratings because no one can watch these matches other than the people in attendance. But this is a rare case where someone filmed the match in its entirety. But sadly, this is not a 6-star match. Hell, I wouldn't even give this 5 stars. This is basically a non-canon version of their matches from 1989, with all the classic spots from their feud are in this match. Ricky's taking control of the match, with Flair doing some cheap heel tactics to cut off Steamboat's momentum. Flair cheats when the referee isn't looking, you know the deal. There is a botch, the referee count near the end. I believe Ricky was supposed to win after the flying crossbody, which makes more sense than the roll-up being the actual finish, but the referee stopped the count for some reason. I want to say too, if you go out seeking this match, near the 30-minute mark, the audio randomly cuts and switches to football commentary for like a couple minutes before switching back. This is not a good quality version of this match, but it's the only one we have so far. It's just a fun house show match, nothing really much there to say. This match gets a 4.25 star from me. 2 out of 3 falls matches are some of my favorite matches in wrestling history. You're gonna see quite a few of them in this series, but the first of many, and probably one of the most famous 2 out of 3 falls matches in wrestling history, is Ric Flair vs Steamboat 2. Well, technically 3. I do like the storytelling of this match in terms of how Ricky Steamboat was in control for the majority of the first fall, until Flair just so happens to roll him up and win the first fall. Flair then takes control of the second fall, working Steamboat's legs, throwing him into the railing, but Steamboat catches Flair on the top turnbuckle, suplexes him off the top, and starts working on Flair's injured back. And then he locks on a double arm chicken wing to submit Flair, winning the second fall. So by the time the third fall comes around, it's just a matter of who has the longer endurance, just enough to slightly beat the other person. And as Steamboat catches Flair again and throws him off the top turnbuckle, he tries to lock on the double arm chicken wing to Flair, but his injured leg buckles but he still has his arms locked in for the pinfall. It's a little confusion at first, but the referee gives the win to Ricky Steamboat. This is a fantastic match, but I do have one gripe about it. With the amount of times the commentators, Jim Ross and Terry Funk, the ring announcers, and everyone making a big deal about the 1 hour time limit, this match could have easily made more sense if it ended in a time limit draw. I mean, they went 55 out of the 60 minutes, and the finish made it feel like they were going to be a draw. Hell, Ric Flair had his foot on the rope during the pinfall. It seems a little too convoluted of a finish instead of just simply letting these guys needed more time and couldn't finish the match within the hour. And it would have put Flair's chance to reclaim the title over more, considering the fact that he never really lost. It would have made their third match at Wrestle War a much bigger deal, because if this match ended in a draw, then their third and final encounter needs to have a winner. Other than the one booking change, this is still a classic match that holds up. And I'm honestly quite surprised that the number of matches in the 1980s hold up almost 40 years later with a lot of rewatch value. This match gets the full 5 stars from me. I really do appreciate the big match feel for Flair vs Steamboat 4, having 3 judges at ringside just in case this match ends in a draw. Out of all of the Flair and Steamboat matches, this has to be the best paced match. I don't know what it is when they did the time call for 15 minutes, but I was genuinely shocked when it felt like only 5 minutes had passed. To where the last match you can kind of feel all of 55 minutes of it. And once again, we get simple booking here. Steamboat for the majority of this match is working on Flair's arm, and at some points his back as well, to set him up for the double arm chicken wing, the same move that made him submit in the second fall of their last match. But just as when it gets locked on, Flair is quick to the ropes, and Steamboat goes for the top rope too many times. Flair just so happens to shake him off the top rope, and Steamboat goes crashing to the floor, injuring his knee. Flair then works on his knee and locks on the figure 4 leg lock. But this is the move that Steamboat has been in plenty of times. He manages to stay resilient and grabs a rope break. If this is not going to beat him, what will? Flair pulls a trick out of Steamboat's playbook and rolls him up just like how Steamboat rolled up Randy Savage at WrestleMania 3, and Flair barely gets the win. I don't know if I like this one or their 2 out of 3 falls match better. Maybe the 2 out of 3 falls match just a bit better just for the sheer endurance of it, but this is a close second for callbacks and just simple but easy to learn booking, and as well as the big match feel that it has for it. As for every 5 minutes after the first 15, the judges handed their notes cards over to the referee to tally up the points just to see who's in the lead. This would be the first of many 5-star classics for the All Japan Triple Crown Championship. The story of a man slowly overcoming the ace in the company, slowly taking his position to carry all throughout the 90s. Sadly, Tenryu wouldn't end up long after this match, leaving in early 1990 to go start War, Wrestle, and Romance. But the little nuances and details are just satisfying to watch. I do want to thank Joseph Montesio for his Walking the King's Road series for helping me understand this match more, as well as many other All Japan matches within this series. To put into context, this match is actually a rematch of their 1989 April match, which ends abruptly as Tenryu gets legit knocked out after a powerbomb by Tsuruta. Tsuruta takes control a lot of this match up until Tenryu kicks out of the jumping body scissors. Now the match switches up to telling the story of Tenryu's climb to overcome Tsuruta, culminating to a satisfying victory. This is a high recommend. The match gets the full 5 stars from me. Well, here it is, our final stop in the 80s. A violent, brutal, chaotic I Quit match. Almost in every way, we've come full circle. Such an all-timer babyface performance here by Ric Flair, as well as a heel performance here from Terry Funk. This is something I wish modern I Quit matches would do, and just let the wrestlers cut promos and just talk during the match itself, instead of letting the referee blankly sitting there asking them the stupid question again and again and again. The referee in this match barely gets involved as Terry Funk mainly does the talking, and he's just so excellent at it, giving Flair a chance for him to quit right before the bell rings, calling him an egg-sucking dog while punching him in the corner, all for Flair to lock in the figure 4 leg lock and having Terry Funk scream in agony that he quits. This shockingly holds up very well today, and I wish people would use this match as a learning tool. A lot of current day death matches and no DQ matches could really benefit here and work in this style of wrestling. This still stands to me, at least, as the greatest I Quit match of all time. To end the 80s, this one gets the full 5 stars from me. This was the biggest challenge whenever I wanted to do this project. It's hard for me to go back and watch matches from the 80s because it is slower, it is more dragged out. But I was surprised at the amount of matches I would go back and watch again. Quite a larger amount of matches I gave 5 stars to than I predicted when I started this project. To put into perspective, there were 22 matches I watched for this portion of the project, and 50% of them I gave 5 stars to. Not bad for a decade I wasn't really excited for. With the biggest sluggish decade out of the way, I can't wait to get into the 90s.
Let there be rain, and there was rain. Let there be rain, and there was rain. On me every